You know, when we think about garbage, we think of it as the end of the line, right? You throw it out and it just goes away. But what happens when away is actually another country? Okay, let's get into this because today we're going to see how the incredibly mundane topic of trash became the flashpoint for a huge geopolitical conflict, and believe it or not, how that fight sparked a really surprising AI revolution. All right, to really get a sense of the scale here, we have to go to the Ambassador Bridge. It connects Windsor, Ontario to Detroit, Michigan, and it's basically the main artery for the entire North American auto industry. So naturally, you're thinking the number one cargo has to be car parts, right? Or maybe finished vehicles rolling off the line. Well, you'd be wrong. The answer, amazingly, is garbage. We're talking about a convoy that literally never sleeps, hauling 3.46 million tons of Canadian trash into the heart of Michigan every single year. And this isn't just a sanitation thing. This is a massive, invisible supply chain that pretty much became a weapon in a hidden trade war. So you gotta wonder, right? How on earth did two of the world's most advanced economies get tangled up in this kind of bizarre and frankly dysfunctional relationship that's built entirely on trash? Let's dig in. I mean, just look at these numbers. They really lay out the sheer dependency. That 3.46 million tons of trash from Ontario makes up almost 15% of everything that gets buried in Michigan's landfills. But for Ontario, it's even more critical. They are shipping more than a quarter of their entire province's waste south of the border. This wasn't just a convenience, it was an existential relief valve. So why? Why would you drive a truck full of old banana peels and Amazon boxes across an international border? Well, it all boils down to a simple, almost absurd economic incentive. A loophole so powerful, it literally shaped the infrastructure of an entire region for decades. Okay, this chart tells the whole story. Just look at the bar from Michigan. The state-level tax to dump 1 ton of trash was 36 cents. 36 cents. You can't even buy a gumball for that. Now, compare that to Ontario, where it costs over $100 just to develop new landfill space. The math was a no-brainer. It was way cheaper to just put the garbage on a truck and ship it south. And this arrangement, it worked for decades, until suddenly it didn't. All at once, a perfect storm of political pressure from both sides of the border threatened to slam this waste valve completely shut. And that created an absolute panic up in Ontario. It was a classic pincer movement. So, at the federal level, the U.S. administration started weaponizing trade policy. They created this thing called the USMCA transshipment trap, where they'd audit trucks, find some foreign-made part in the trash, and slap on these massive 40% penalties. Then, at the state level, Michigan's governor tried to hike that 36-cent fee all the way up to $5. And hanging over all of it was Ontario's own doomsday clock. Without Michigan, their landfills would be totally full by 2034. But with the border effectively closed, this crisis became a massive opportunity. Out of all this geopolitical chaos, a company called 905 Wood came up with a radical micro-level solution. They pivoted from just a simple waste problem to a super high-tech data strategy. They invented what they call a digital refinery. Now, don't picture a physical factory or anything. This is a technology stack. It's software, it's AI, it's smart logistics. And it takes something that nobody wants, construction wood waste, and it completely transforms its identity from a physical liability into a really valuable digital asset. So, for the person on the construction site, it's actually incredibly simple. First, you just use a phone running Google's Gemini model through the Vertex AI platform to scan a pile of wood. The AI scores the quality, and it locks in the GPS location. Second, the app instantly calculates how much money you just saved by avoiding landfill taxes, and it even creates tradable carbon assets, called CORCs. And finally, you use a secure digital signature to create an audit-proof, unchangeable record. But of course, that simple front end is powered by a seriously intelligent back end. This is where the magic happens. It's a financial and legal engine that's designed to literally change human behavior using data. The secret sauce here is something called decoupled billing. See, your typical waste hauler just sends you one flat fee, right? It hides the real disposal cost. 905 Wood splits the bill. You see the fixed cost for the truck, and then a separate variable line item for these new provincial levies on mixed waste, like the $60 CRCI levy. And this is where it gets really clever psychologically. If you sort your wood correctly and the AI verifies that it's clean, that variable levy line on your bill just, poof, it drops to zero. All of a sudden, your invoice turns into a zero levy report card, showing you in big green letters exactly how much money you saved. It basically gamifies doing the right thing. Okay, so making savings obvious is one thing. But for this whole system to work, it has to navigate a total minefield of complex environmental laws. So how do you make sure the AI's decisions aren't just smart, but legally bulletproof?
Well, they do it with a technology called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. The best way to think about it is like giving the AI an open book exam. Instead of just guessing an answer based on all the stuff it learned from the internet, the AI is forced to look up the answer in a specific approved textbook. And in this case, that textbook is the literal text of Ontario's environmental regulations. It stops the AI from hallucinating or making things up.
And this is what creates what they call explainable compliance. The system doesn't just say error, look at this output. It shows how it queried its AlloDB database, which has the full text of the law, and it gives a legally grounded reason for the rejection, actually citing the specific clause from Ontario Regulation 347. It says, nope, I'm rejecting this because it violates this very specific rule about arsenic levels. This creates a perfect audit-proof trail for regulators. Now, this all sounds incredibly promising, right? A total game changer. But it is absolutely vital that we separate the marketing vision from what's actually happening on the ground, and we have to acknowledge the real risks of putting an AI in charge of legal compliance. And this slide really lays out that contrast perfectly. The promise is this amazing digital refinery, turning waste into luxury goods with flawless AI compliance. The current reality? It's more of a logistics arbitrage business, turning wood into biomass fuel, all while navigating a pretty massive liability risk. And this quote from our sources just cuts right to the heart of that risk. You see, AIs are probabilistic. They make highly educated guesses. Using one to fill out legally binding documents is a super high-stakes gamble. As the source says, one bad interpretation, one mistaken classification, and a single failed audit could be absolutely catastrophic. But hey, despite the risks, what has happened here is a fundamental transformation. I mean, the story that started with a geopolitical crisis over actual physical mountains of trash has ended with the creation of a weightless, valuable digital product. So let's just synthesize this whole thing. Geopolitical pressure on a physical supply chain forced a technological solution. That solution takes a physical liability, a pile of messy wood waste, and converts it into a digital asset, which is a compliance certificate. So what 905 Wood is ultimately selling isn't wood. Anyone can do that. What they are selling is certainty, and it's a certainty that's verified by AI and backed by a printable, audit-ready PDF manifest. And really, this whole story is kind of a blueprint for the future. It forces us to ask, what other invisible trade wars, or regulatory cliffs, or supply chain pressures are out there right now, quietly creating the problems that the next generation of technology is going to have to solve? What looks like just boring old infrastructure today could be the flashpoint for the next big innovation.